Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Middle East and Beyond. I'm Barry Stagner, coming to you from sunny Southern California, and I'm here with Amir Sarfati from the Jezreel Valley. Amir, shalom, good to see you.
Shalom, Pastor Barry. Good to see you too. We're a few minutes late because the sirens went off all across Israel to mark the beginning of the Day of Remembrance for the fallen soldiers and for the victims of terror. So Israel is entering now into a solemn 24 hours where we remember the fallen and we visit cemeteries. I don't think there's a single Israeli family that has not been affected by this. So I mean, it's hard to say everything is great, but it is what it is. That's the price we have to pay to be here. How are you doing, Pastor Barry?
I'm doing great. We've got a beautiful day here developing in Southern California, and looking forward to talking about the things that relate to Bible prophecy and just the general news that are happening in our world today. And of course, if we're going to talk about last day's events, we have to focus on the nation of Israel and what's happening there. The Bible has pointed to that little tiny piece of land that will be the focus of global attention in the last days, which in and of itself points us to the lateness of the hour. And Amir, we've talked in the past about the kind of the situation that the Druze are in, and we know that the Druze who live in Israel are a very committed people to the national safety of the nation. They're very committed to the nation of Israel. And there's been kind of a interesting situation regarding the Druze who live in Syria and kind of trying to protect themselves by maintaining a Syrian type of loyalty. But things are changing, as the old proverbial statement goes. Maybe you can talk about the Druze that are now crossing down out of Syria into Israel and discuss a little bit about the why of that.
Yeah, so Israel has about 100,000 Druze in northern Israel, from Mount Carmel up to lower and upper Galilee to the Golan Heights. And the Druze are basically from the region of Lebanon, Syria, and northern Israel. And so you can find Druze in Lebanon, you can find them in Syria, where there is a whole mountain called Jabal Druze, the Mount of the Druze, and of course in northern Israel. And in northern Israel, there's the holy sites for the Druze, of the site of the burial of Jethro, the father-in-law of Moses, and that's their saint. They're the man that they hold as the most sacred person of their religion. And once a year, they come and they worship there during a holiday. In Nabi Shu'aib, that's how they call him. And this year, due to the circumstances of the fall of the Assad regime and the fact that Israel is present also in parts of Syria right now, 600 and I think more than 600 plus Druze leaders crossed into Israel to celebrate at Nabi Shu'aib in Galilee. And that was a wonderful thing because many of them have family members in Israel or in Lebanon. And so a lot of family reunification. You saw daughters that met with their fathers, and you saw sons met with their mother. It was very moving, very touching. And you could see that beyond politics, there is, the people. And that was amazing. But then, Pastor Barry, I guess the jihadists didn't like this whole thing. They didn't like the friendship that the Druze showed towards Israel. And as of last night, the same gangs that massacred the Alawites on the coast began making their way down towards the Druze places in southern Syria. Jamarana is in the area of Damascus. We can see the map. You can clearly see where the Druze are in Syria. So as you can see, there's the whole the Damascus area, and there is the southern place in Sueda, and caravans loaded with jihadists were on their way to slaughter the Druze. Now it's the time to slaughter the Druze after the Alawites. However, the Druze are not the Alawites. The Druze are not. Those jihadis came and they found out. So there is a great tension now between the Druze and the jihadists. Now, it's very interesting. A lot of people are saying, wait a minute, Amir, I thought that there's a new regime in Syria and they're okay. Well, al-Jolani or Mohammed al-Shara, the new unelected president, self-appointed president, he tries to project himself as moderate, as a nice guy. But what he does, often we see that in many dictatorships around the Arab world, he also keeps his militias, his gangs, and he let them do the dirty job and keeps his hands clean. So they destroy anyone that might oppose or might pose a threat. And then he can say, oh, no, these are not my people. I'm going to send my people to bring about peace to that area. It's a dirty game. Israel might have to intervene because Israel pledged to help and protect the Druze. But again, let's see what's going on in the next few hours. We'll see how it develops. But again, after the Alawites, now al-Shara wants complete submission of the Druze.
Yeah, Mir, in time past, we've talked a little about the fact that the Druze, kind of a mystical community there in Israel, are serving in the IDF. They're fierce fighters, very aggressive and defensive of Israel. And, with Jolani, I think, and his Al-Qaeda ties, you can only hide, what's going on behind the curtain for so long. And I think now we're seeing a little bit more of what to expect in the future. And Amir, one of the big stories, and again, of course, always if we're going to talk about the Middle East, we have to mention Iran as well. And this Bandar Abbas port explosion has been dominating the news for some time. And of course, the fingers are pointing at Israel. The timing of this is rather curious. And, it smacks somewhat of what happened in Lebanon and with that massive explosion there. But, Israel is getting the blame or credit, depending on which side of the fence you're sitting on. But at the time of the negotiations with Trump, it's kind of a curious event.
It is very curious. And today we're going to expose some details that a lot of people don't know about what happened there. And so it all begins, I'll show you the map. I mean, people think it all started in Iran, but in reality, it did not start in Iran. Let's move a little bit to the east. It actually started in China. Take a look at Shanghai. In Shanghai seaport, there was a ship, actually there were more than one, that made its way from Shanghai port all the way towards the Bandar Abbas port a few weeks ago and unloaded there a big shipment of something that Iran should not have. And that's, of course, the sodium perchlorate. And we're talking about a material that is used for solid fuel components for ballistic missiles. There was enough material there for 200 missiles. Iran shouldn't have it. Iran shouldn't get it. This is prohibited, and yet that's exactly what exploded. Now, this is the fourth largest port in the entire Middle East, and we're talking about the main port for Iran, and so any disruptive thing there is basically paralyzing the Iranian thing. And take a look at what happened. These are the places that were affected, and we're talking about places that are not exactly attached to one another. Some of them are 100 yards away from the other, and this is exactly where they were held in different places. And it's very strange that only those warehouses that held, take a look at this explosion, only those places that held that sodium perchlorate basically exploded. And again, it wasn't a progressive fire to the neighboring building. It happened in 3 different locations, and it kept burning day and night for almost 3 days. They couldn't put out the fire. They had to even ask for help from Russia to bring some of their big planes, but even then didn't really help them. And only today they claim to have control over the fire. But take a look at what this place looked like after the blast. We're talking about apocalyptic sites. And in a few seconds, I'll tell you also another thing that people don't know. The IRGC is hiding everything that is related to this incident. I mean, take a look, Pastor Barry, at what's eventually left from this area. I think we have footage of the very end of it. I mean, that's, of course, it was burning the whole night there, but eventually this is what's left. And take a look at this drone footage from the number one port in Iran and the fourth largest port in the Middle East. And Pastor Barry, we know that the death toll is over 100 people. Some even say 200 to 300 people. Injuries over 1,000 people. And we know that at least when it comes to the actual event, there was an Iranian leader of opposition, and she, of course, she gets the information, and she published it. And let me tell you what is exactly she said. She basically said, more than taking care of the event and rescuing people, the IRGC was trying to manage the situation from not being revealed, and neither the scope nor the actual material. And this is why one of the parliament members in Iran decided to immediately accuse Israel. And the reason is very simple. He knew exactly what exploded. And if that's not enough, the Ayatollah Khamenei also is the one who said we must investigate what happened there. But I will tell you, Pastor Bay, I'm not going to tell you Israel did it, but I will tell you why people may want to think that it did happen. It happened on the weekend that America met with Iran for the nuclear talks in Oman, which was right there, literally a few miles away from there. It happened also so the timing, the location, of course, is Iran's busiest port. And the third thing is that which actually exploded. It was only the material for ballistic missiles that Israel is against Iran having. So all these things, the timing, the location, and the actual stuff that has exploded, can cause people to guess that someone must have sabotaged these things.
Yeah, the Ayatollah immediately came out and said this is the mishandling of fertilizer, trying to, draw some type of association to the Lebanon situation. And again, this is the Iranian save face efforts, for Israel to get inside. First of all, to know what was being shipped, some of the components for manufacturing solid rocket fuel. And it is interesting, Amir, there's no reason to ship such chemicals in to Iran unless there's somewhere to use it. And again, exactly. I think with these negotiations that Trump is involved in, there's reason, I think, for concern regarding, some of the statements that he has made, about, if we come to the table with an agreement or come away from the table with an agreement, there's no need for any military action or things of that nature that we'll talk about in a moment. But Netanyahu gave a very powerful speech to the Jewish News Syndicate and gave some further details about probably something that will go down in history as one of the most incredible covert ops in the history of warfare. And that was the pager operation that we all have watched unfold a year ago. And maybe you can bring us up to date on Netanyahu's speech.
Yeah, so Netanyahu in Jerusalem, in the JNS, as you said, the Jewish Syndicate, News Syndicate, he appeared in a very relaxing way where he found friendly audience, and he kind of decided to give some extra details, very, very, very spicy details. Exactly. In regards to the Pagers operation. Now, first of all, the fact that Israel not only not denying its involvement, but Israel is actually boasting in doing that. But then, of course, take a look at what Netanyahu shared regarding the urgency of the operation at that specific time frame. Take a look.
The third week, I think, of September, we learned that Hamas, or rather that Hezbollah had sent 3 beepers to be scanned in Iran. We had previously bombed a scanner they were going to bring in, so we got rid of that, and the guy who operates it. But now they had these, and you know, they have this minuscule amount of TNT, and when the Mossad guy showed it to me a few months earlier, he's giving me an update how many we've got inside, and I say, well, is that really going to do the job? I mean, how much TNT do you have there? And so he says, I don't know, nanograms, something like that. I said, what is that going to do? It's not going to do anything. He said, oh, no, it'll do it. Give me that. I take the beeper and I throw it on the wood paneling in my office, and it dented it. And I said, okay, go ahead. So now we're all set to go. But now it turns out that they're scanning this. And I learned it. And I was crazy. I said, what? Why didn't you tell me this? Well, it happened a few days ago. Well, how long does it take him to do this? It could take a day. I said, well, we have to do it right away.
There you go. Israel was racing against the clock before the Iranians will scan and find those explosives inside the pagers. And it's just, thankfully, it worked, and that changed the whole course of the war until this very, very day. But that was not the only thing that Netanyahu shared during that thing. He basically said, we're ruling out a Palestinian state. This is not going to happen on my watch. We're not going to replace one terror regime with another. But another thing that he said is the how Israel is envisioning the outcome of any agreement between America and Iran regarding the nuclear site. So take a look at what he said about that one.
You have to dismantle their nuclear infrastructure. And that means not that they will not enrich uranium, but that they will not have the capacity to enrich uranium, which means you destroy the centrifuges, you remove, of course, the nuclear material that is already enriched, and there are a few other things that you have to do, but that's the crux of it. The real deal that works is a deal which removes Iran's capacity to enrich uranium for nuclear weapons.
Yeah, exactly. So, Pastor Barry, as long as they have centrifuges, they will enrich uranium, not 3.5%, not 20, not 60. They want the 90+% because they want the bomb. We all know that. They know that. Everyone knows that. They did it. We're not going to settle for anything less than complete dismantling of all of their centrifuges and removal of anything they've already enriched to another place. And by the way, the last thing he said is that we might have to destroy the nuclear sites if that is not going to be achieved. So basically, Netanyahu is telling the American team also, anything less than the Libyan model will cause us and drag us to do what we prefer not to do, but if we have to, we will do it.
Yeah, and I mean, the aspirations of the Iranians, I think, are made clear from multiple things. You know, enriching to 60%, we've talked about that in time past, but also a heavy water plant, you know, which allows the enrichment process to be sped up. It's only one reason to do that. You don't need to speed it up to get to 3 to 5%. If you're looking for, you know, something that is a concentration of 90% in order to create that fissile material, which can be used in a nuclear bomb, that's where the heavy water plant comes into play. So they're, you know, basically they're telegraphing their intentions through many, many different fronts. And again, their desire is not for energy, but rather to eliminate the great Satan and the little Satan. And we mentioned a moment ago, Amir, maybe you can expand a little bit on Trump's remarks about Iran and the proximity of having a deal with the Iranians that will make any type of military action unnecessary.
Yeah, okay, so I'll be very honest with you. Can I be honest with you, Pastor Barry?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So I'll be honest with you. I was extremely disappointed with the remarks of President Trump that, hey, we are reaching a deal and this way we don't have to throw bombs everywhere. I think that if you really truly understand the Middle East and how things go here, the last thing you want to say is that you are eager for a deal and that you are not eager to use force. The opposite is what the other side needs to know. The other side needs to know that you are determined to use the military option in case they will not flex and come up with some concessions. The Iranians are masters in fooling the other. They invented chess. They know how to think 5-6 moves ahead. All they want is to kill time until Trump is going to lose the majority in the House and later on will no longer be president. They know it's a matter of a year and a half until he's losing, as far as they're concerned, because they're going to do whatever they can to stir up everything together with Qatar to make sure that the Democrats will take control of the House. And then, that's midterm, and then of course they'll do whatever it takes for Trump not to even think about changing the rules and running again. And I can tell you, Pastor Barry, this is a masterpiece of deception of the Iranians. Now, having said that, the nearness of Netanyahu's declaration at the JNS and Trump's declaration makes me think that maybe they're playing the good cop and the bad cop, and maybe it's a strategy. And if it's so, then it's good. But again, Israel starts feeling that there's going to be an agreement. There are going to be concessions, but the concessions will be on our side and on the American side rather than the Iranians. And again, Pastor Barry, if Iran will keep the centrifuges, there is no doubt they are going to enrich uranium to levels that are only for nuclear power. It's for nuclear bomb and not for nuclear energy. So it's very interesting to hear that. I don't know what's going on there with the negotiations, but we actually see that there's a shift in Trump's attitude, not only with Iran, but also with Gaza. So I mean, we shortly we're going to move to the Gaza part, and I'll tell you what about that.
Yeah, Amir, it is possible. I thought the same thing, that he could be playing the diplomacy game. And, it is curious to me why so many Western nations just don't understand the mindset of the Islamic community, especially the extremists. It seems like Israel's the only one that really understands what their goals are and that they mean what they say. If they want to destroy the great Satan and the little Satan, that's not a joke. That's not hyperbole. That is the goal that is in mind. And I think Trump has, by and large, better understood that than previous administrations. So I think, it's possible what you said, that it is indeed, just something that he's playing the good cop role in this scenario. Also, Amir, I think one of the things that's most important for us to remember is that what this program is all about, separately, are about informing the world regarding what the truth actually is. And we live in an age of delusion and deception. And that's why it's important for you as a viewer to subscribe, to like, to share, and to comment, so the visibility of this program and others like it can be raised in the eyes of those who are out there looking on social media platforms for information, especially the truth, because we know what Iran is ultimately going to do. We know that Turkey will follow with them, as will Russia and Sudan and Libya. We know what's coming, and we know that because of God's word. And that's the value in doing this program. Mm-hmm. We, again, enlist your aid in getting the word out as a viewer. And Amir, maybe you can continue on your thought regarding the Gaza Strip and some of the comments made by Trump regarding aid to Gaza and the other things associated with that.
Yeah, so even here, maybe there's a good cop and a bad cop strategy, but this time, both of them are Americans. So we've got President Trump telling reporters aboard Air Force One that regarding Gaza, they're suffering, and I ask Israel to send medications and food, blah, blah, blah. And what makes me angry is that no one talks about the fact that the medication and the food needs to go to the hostages. That's the problem that we have there. And so the interesting thing is, while Trump is saying that to reporters aboard Air Force One, the newly appointed ambassador of the United States to Israel, Governor Huckabee, now Ambassador Huckabee, he actually said something a little different when it comes to the hostages and to the food and medication in Gaza. Take a look at what Ambassador Huckabee said.
Does go in, they steal it, exploit it, and make their people starve while they themselves live large. This is the tragedy of what's happened in Gaza. I don't blame Israel for that. I blame Hamas. They're the ones who overrun those borders on October the 7th and slaughtered and massacred and mutilated people. And they're the ones who continue to make it miserable, not just for the hostages. They make it miserable for their own population and steal the food from the mouths of the babies of Gaza themselves. I don't understand how people can be that vicious and cruel, but that's what everyone is having to deal with when it relates to Hamas.
Yeah. And so, Pastor Barry, another thing that kind of worries me a little bit as of late with President Trump is the fact that Qatar is a country that he's respecting too much and giving it too much credit. And I would like to share with you and with the audience something that many people don't know. May I read? So basically, let me tell you that in regards to Qatar, there is, of course, stalemate in Gaza right now, and it's being, we're being criticized for not doing something. But then, a week ago, Qatar's prime minister visited the United States and met with President Donald Trump, with one of the main topics of discussions being Hamas's continued presence in Gaza, a situation Israel cannot allow to persist. Immediately after the meeting, conversation took place between Trump and Israel's prime minister, followed by a trip by the head of the Mossad to meet with Qatar's prime minister. That's Brigadier General that was interviewed said, I assume Trump told Netanyahu something like, Bibi, go meet this guy in Qatar, he has something to tell you. So the Middle East expert emphasized that while Israel focuses on the release of hostages, Qatar's primary concern is ensuring Hamas's continued presence in Gaza. Until a few months ago, Qatar was talking about the hostages, and the issue of Hamas was on the sidelines. Today, Hamas's survival has become their central focus, and they're no longer hiding it, he said. He warned that Qatar's return to the scene is not a good event for Israel. Qatar is placing a lot of pressure on Trump and on Israel to leave Hamas in power. And when they say, let's have a truce for 5 years, that let's have a truce, and in return we'll give you all the hostages. What they don't tell you is, let's keep Hamas in power. And that, of course, cannot happen and should not happen. And I hope that Israel is going to show determination, because only eradication of Hamas can ensure a better future for us, for our children, and also send a message to all of our neighbors that Israel is not someone you want to play around with. And if you do it, you'll find out.
Yeah, Mayor, it's always bizarre to hear the accusations of genocide being leveled at Israel, especially after what happened on October 7th. But on top of that, you look at some of these negotiations, you see that a handful or even one Israeli is exchanged for hundreds or even 1,000 prisoners that are Hamas or terror related. And, if Israel was into genocide, there wouldn't be thousands of prisoners to release. They would have been executed in prison. if that was the ultimate goal. And, again, just thinking of the world and so many who are, following this pattern of wokeness and liberal left thinking, it just defies logic. And this kind of plays into what we know is going to be the predominant factor that infiltrates thinking in the last days, and that is delusion. And boy, are we living in that age now.
Yeah, and I want to add, Pastor Barry, thank you for saying that. I want to add that Israel is the stalemate that we're in right now. It's because we really want to find a good solution to bring our hostages back. And also, believe it or not, we do want to find a solution where the Gazans will get their food instead of Hamas taking it. That's why, look, we are creating, out of all the 5 areas of Gaza, we are now creating a new humanitarian zone near Rafah that will ensure Israel's complete control over what's going on there. And we're going to have American companies that will deliver the food and medication to the Gazans, so Hamas will be completely out of the picture. So Israel is truly doing whatever it takes, to bring about the release of our hostages, and to ensure that the Gazan population is not exploited by Hamas, and they will get what they need. It's just that we don't want to play in the hands of Hamas. That's all. And I'm proud of being an Israeli that is not out there to just kill anyone. I want to bring to justice those perpetrators and anyone who assisted them. And I think that Gaza is not inhabitable. I mean, the footage is talking by itself. I mean, it's uninhabitable. And I think that President Trump's idea of relocating the Gazans is not because he's a bad guy. It's because he cares about them. And if anyone cares about the Gazans, by the way, the Gazans themselves, as we talked about last week, the Gazans themselves wish they could leave, because they themselves understand there's no infrastructure, there's nothing, there's no future left for them with Hamas in power and with all the infrastructure completely destroyed.
Yeah, Amir, and pointing back to the situation with the port in Iran and what you mentioned about the Iranian Republican Guard, them being more concerned about making sure the story gets deflected away from what actually happened, or Israel possibly infiltrating their territory, instead of focusing on the human life situation and saving people. They're more concerned about saving face than saving human lives. And you've got the same type of mentality with this extremist group in Gaza. It's more about maintaining power. It's more about, playing the bully and all the other things we know they do. And yet the world, so much of the world is completely delusional in their perspective on this situation. And Amir, things continue to unfold on your northern border, not just with Syria, but also in Beirut. And there was a recent strike in Beirut. And maybe you can fill in the gaps there for us as well. Yeah,
and that's the model that works, Pastor Barry. We are determined everywhere we know that Hezbollah has infrastructures, some parts of ballistic missiles or missiles themselves, or drones or whatever it is, we are determined to destroy it. And by the way, I know people may not believe me. We're in touch with America, with the UN, and with the Lebanese government. We don't just go and throw bombs. Everyone knows what we found. Everyone knows what we're going to do with it. And nobody says a word, because they all want this type of cancer to be rooted out of Lebanon. The Lebanese government understand that Hezbollah will never disarm on its own. And if Israel is doing the job for them, why not? I mean, let's face it. We warned the people that were about to bomb. We issued evacuation notice. Then we did the knock on the roof, where we dropped small bombs just to scare everyone so they can leave. And eventually came the attack, and take a look at what it looked like. And as the building was attacked, and trust me, a lot of stuff went in the air over there. As you can clearly see, the mushroom, the smoke mushroom going up in the air. And then, of course, the aftermath is what you see right now. And by the way, everything you see here is on my Telegram channel. Listen, people, that's what you want to follow. I mean, there is a QR code at the very far end above Barry that shows up every few minutes. You want to scan the QR code and you want to follow me on Telegram. Non-stop 24/7 news right from the ground. And you know, a lot of you may not believe me, but ambassadors, military attaches, and government officials, they're all following me on Telegram because they get the news not only accurately but in real time. So that's as far as Beirut. By the way, Hezbollah tried to... the leader of Hezbollah is so pathetic. He came and gave a speech yesterday. Nobody even listened to him. And blah, blah, blah. Yeah, Hezbollah will not disarm. Lebanon, it has to, punish Israel. Nobody listens to him. That's it. He's irrelevant. That's not Nasrallah.
Yeah, Amir, also, let's skip down and talk about one of the other countries mentioned in the Ezekiel war scenario, and that is Saudi Arabia and the Abraham Accords and all the things we know that and during the first Trump administration, there were some great advancements made in that area. And maybe you can talk about what's happening now, Trump's statements about Saudi Arabia, and the fact that they are the one named protesting nation during the Ezekiel invasion, and the United States remained silent during that time for some reason.
Yeah, it's very interesting, Pastor Brian. Thank you for mentioning the fact that there are some potential countries to join, but it's the Saudis that are actually mentioned in the Bible as the ones siding with Israel. Take a look at this map that we prepared. The Abraham Accords were signed during the first term of President Trump. Of course, the green one is countries we had peace with before that, and then came, of course, the UAE and Bahrain, and then Sudan and Morocco. But now when you look at the purple ones are the ones that are now next in line, which is Saudi Arabia, Syria, Lebanon, and Indonesia, and maybe even more. And it's very interesting. I'm not sure Syria is really serious about it because, to be honest with you, again, as you said, Pastor Barry, the Bible is not talking about Syria being friends of Israel. If anything, Damascus is going to be destroyed. Lebanon, maybe, because there's a lot of voices that are advocating for it, and maybe even Indonesia. And one thing for sure, the Saudis, I'm not saying that President Trump said that. President Trump said that he believes that the Saudis are going to join the Abraham's Accord. He's going to come next month to the Middle East, and I believe that he's working hard right now to make it to the Middle East, to make it to Saudi Arabia, and to make some big announcements while he's there. And then, of course, the Syrian president, we know that he gave a statement in a letter that he sent to President Trump where he basically said, hey, all we want is that the Israelis will withdraw from anything they just took from us, and they will keep us intact. They will not attack us, and we want peace with Israel. We want to join the Abraham's Accord. But remember, we just talked about the fact that they have two tongues. And they talk to the world this way, but they have their own jihadi militias and the gangs, and that's the last regime we want to trust. But Minister Ron Dermer yesterday also gave a speech at the JNS, and when he was asked, how do you think the Middle East is going to look like 12 months from now? 12 months from now, and then he said in 12 months Israel will already have victory in the war will be behind us. And then he stunned the world when he actually said, more peace agreements will be with Israel. There will be many more countries that want peace with Israel. But then he said, but victory, however, is the key. They wait to see how we end the war. And again, that's why I'm saying, if we don't finish the job with Hamas, no one is going to actually take us seriously and want to have peace with us. We have to finish the job for our sake and for the sake of everyone around us.
Yeah, Mayor, moving out into the rest of the world, the Beyond portion of our program, something interesting happened over this past week. And there's an article talking about the chaos sweeping through Iberia and mass blackouts in Spain, Portugal, and France sparked fears of a cyber attack. And I think the reason this is important is that modern warfare has changed. You've got a lot of warfare now that is conducted via some type of video screen and a joystick, considering the drone activity that we have in our day. And, I think, Amir, that this is important for us to recognize, because what we do know is that early in the tribulation period, there is going to be, butchering, human to human butchering, according to the rider on the red horse, that takes that pseudo peace that the rider on the white horse brings in Revelation chapter 6, verse 2. And we also know that there's going to be massive famine. And in this age where, computer devices are running most of our equipment, you can't buy gas without the involvement of a computer. They've got computer screens on the gas pumps here and all around the world. And if that all shuts down, you could move from an age of abundance to an age of catastrophic famine in just a matter of a week or so. And here you've got this story of, was this a cyber attack? And of course, we've got the other things that we've talked about in time past. I think we even mentioned it last week, these high altitude explosions of nuclear devices that would disable anything on the ground. And, that would be catastrophic in the age in which we live. And there's some interesting components of the tribulation period that point that that's a very real possibility, including, mentions of shields and bucklers and ancient warfare devices and all that. But I thought that was a kind of an interesting development. Maybe you can comment on that as well.
No, I think you're right. By the way, the stupidity of countries that destroyed their source of energy, the coal, and even nuclear power plants, in order to align with the Greens and with all the climate change people. Now they pay the price for it, and now they see that if there's a slight problem with energy, everything is being shut down. But I do agree with you that we see a surge in violence, and we see a surge also in countries that have governments that are very socialist. And when you combine the two, anything small that happens causes violence to be the first thing they resort to. And eventually, I believe this is what's going to happen. And I do agree with you. We're going to see more and more of these things in the near future. And that's definitely signs of the end times, definitely.
Yeah, Amir, I think it very definitely tells us that we are in close proximity to a major transition, which is introduced by the rapture of the church. And then at some point in time after that, I think we agree that there's most likely and even a necessity of some type of gap between the rapture and the beginning of the tribulation, which many events that will impact the world are going to develop during that time. But, watching what happens in the scenario reported in Revelation chapter 6, these kind of stories remind us of what Jesus talked about in Matthew 24, 3-8, about these normal recurring events in the world, wars and rumors of wars, ethnic tensions, famines, pestilence, seismos, earthquakes, and atmospheric events. And now we've got something rather interesting popping up on the radar here in the United States, and that is that the CDC is reporting that U.S. measles cases are surging. And this is something that's been long under control. I think most of us in the past have taken measles shots or vaccines when we were kids, and many of the other things that were required in order to attend public school here. But I think that one of the important things about mentioning this particular story is we now have a total of 884 confirmed cases of measles in 30 U.S. states since the beginning of the year up until April 24th, is that one of the contributing factors to this spread and other things like it that could possibly follow is that the CDC and the pharmaceutical industry has created a great distrust, especially through the COVID situation and all the things that happened then. And so people are afraid of vaccines and don't want to or don't really trust those who should be in positions of great trust. And so we're seeing this develop rather interestingly. And Jesus said there would be plagues or pestilences on the rise in the last days. And this story certainly underscores, seems to be developing too.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And we're going to see more and more of these things arising and spreading throughout the world. And again, Pastor Barry, sometimes there could be a real crisis. I mean, for example, there could be a leak from a lab, but then A, they sell you a different story, and B, they take advantage of a crisis and they try to promote their own agenda that has nothing to do with it. But and that's the distrust that everyone is having right now. And this is the thing I like about, what we do. I mean, we're obviously reporting the news, but it has to be very clear. We're not news agencies. We're not a TV network. We're here. What we mostly care about is your understanding of the world in light of the Bible, and you following the Lord. And this is what it's all about. We're not here to make you very knowledgeable people. We want to see committed people who follow the Lord, knowing and understanding the times and the seasons. That's why we ask you to participate in this digital war, not just for yourself, but mostly for your children and grandchildren, because the attack is enormous. So please share this video. Please like, subscribe, and comment. By the way, we love to see your comments, because this is how we know what your opinion is or questions that you have. But also, a lot of non-believers are reading the comments, and comments are a beautiful way to actually send subtle message to others who may not be believers. So, be soldiers in this very important war. So we've got interesting thing from Washington, Pastor Barry. What is it?
Yeah, it's very curious. The state of Washington, just north up in the Pacific Northwest, north of California, above Oregon, has become the first state in the United States to recognize Islamic holidays as state holidays. Now, the curious thing about that, and Washington State is very liberal, it is the most significant portion of the population, or the concentration, I should say, of secular rationals, people who have no religious affiliation whatsoever. They don't recognize Easter and they don't recognize Yom Kippur, but they are now, according to legislation the governor has signed, going to recognize Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha, two Islamic holidays, and this legislation has been signed into law just this month. And what a backwards and upside down world country now that we live in.
Absolutely. And again, Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha, these are the highlights of a Muslim calendar. And if you think about it, America today, by the way, Canada, UK, parts of Sweden, Belgium, Netherlands, I mean, it's all changing. But at the same time, I do believe that the vast majority of the people, it's the silent majority, eventually they will push back. And especially in Europe, they're going to have to push back, because none of them wants all of this. And this is why I believe that as far as Western Europe is concerned, the Antichrist will be the one that they will turn to bring about order in the chaos that is going on right now. Europe is committing suicide. Not only Europe, Canada is committing suicide. I mean, I may jump my gun right now, but I'll say that I mean, Canada just enabled the Liberals to rule again for 4 more years. And if it wasn't enough, the damage that they caused to that country that is unrecognizable right now, honestly. And I'll be very honest with you, Pastor Barry. The Jewish people in Canada should understand that the leader of Canada is not a friend of Israel. It's not a friend of the Jewish people also. and the leader of Canada accused Israel for genocide, is actually placed embargo on weapons for Israel. He's siding with the pro-Hamas people, and Canada is going to go through a horrible situation. By the way, which is why we have a heart for Canada, especially for the remnants in Canada, and you and I are planning a tour across Canada to bring not just the good news, but to bring up to speed everyone there about the times and the seasons in which we live. We'll teach the book of Daniel, the book of Revelation. We'll do nights of Bible prophecy in Victoria, Vancouver, Calgary, and Oakville. About 80% of the seats were already booked, but you've got a chance by scanning the QR code that you see on the screen right now, and hurry up and sign up to be part of our Canada tour this coming summer. We have a heart for Canada, and we really want to see Canada. If Canada is not voting the Conservatives, at least we want to see Canadians coming to Christ. It is the only hope of Canada anyway. Pastor Barry, is there another topic you want to mention before I want to say something?
I think we've pretty much covered it. The only thing I would add is that, the finger pointing at Trump and his comments about annexation, basically turning the tide in favor of the Liberals in Canada. And, again, Amir, for me, this kind of highlights the fact that, people place a value in comments that shouldn't necessarily be there. America cannot annex Canada. Canada's a sovereign state, or country rather, and he's just talking trash, and which is something that he does quite often, and it's kind of his MO. So, it's sad to see people knee-jerk reaction and say, yeah, we want more of the same, instead of doing something that could turn things around for them. So, Mayor, why don't you talk to us about a very important resource that's available now?
Yeah. Unfortunately, what we see in the streets of Vancouver, the streets of Montreal and Toronto, is a blind hatred toward Jews and Israel because of fake news and fake propaganda pushed by Qatar, pushed by Hamas, pushed by so many others, and the young generation being brainwashed. And I want people to watch this video right now.
God met with Abraham and promised, I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse him who curses you, and in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed. This covenant began a relationship between the Lord and Israel that continues to this day. Since October 7th, we've witnessed a tsunami of anti-Israel propaganda flooding the world. Nations condemned Israel, protesters filled the streets, and anti-Semitic hatred spread globally. Most shocking of all, many Christians suddenly began questioning whether today's Israel is truly the Israel of the Bible. This book is the answer. How could God's chosen people experience hatred from God's chosen church? Because many sitting in pews don't understand the unbroken connection between Abraham's Israel and today's Israel. They've been influenced by pastors who remain silent or claim the church has replaced Israel in God's heart. Recognizing God's unbreakable bond with His chosen people is essential to understanding His character. The gifts and the calling of God are irrevocable. If God breaks His promises to Israel, what guarantee do we have He'll keep His promises to us? Never have I written something of such great importance for such a time as this. This isn't just politics. It's spiritual warfare. You'll have the biblical ammunition to change minds and hearts in this critical hour. Pre-order today at theisraeldecree.com.
Yes. And that's the book. Do me a favor, theisraeldecree.com. Order it by scanning the QR code. We need your help. Thank you, Barry. You got it also. We need your help.
Got it.
We want it to be on the bookshelves of every secular bookstore. We want you to give it to your children, to your grandchildren, to your youth pastors and youth groups in your church. That generation is under heavy attack, especially when it comes to Israel, and that affects the way they see God also. So yeah, and now it's the best moment to say goodbye with the Aaronic blessing. So let's do it. יברכך אדוני וישמרך, יאר אדוני פניו אליך ויחונך, יישא אדוני פניו אליך וישם לך שלום.
The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance toward you and give you his peace. Amen.
Yes. Amen. And I want to remind everyone, Israel just entered into the Memorial Day for the fallen soldiers, and the most solemn 24 hours in our country's calendar. And if you want to have the exact number, it's 25,420 soldiers and victims of terror since the country was established in 1948. May God bless the souls and the families. I come from a family that lost my uncle in 1967. I don't think there's a single family that didn't lose someone, dear one. Yeah. So may God bless Israel. May God bless the families and give them comfort. Thank you, Pastor Barry. Thank you, everyone, for watching. This update is super important. Please share it. We're going to try and run it a few times in the next 48 hours so all of you can have a chance to comment, share, and like and subscribe. God bless you and shalom.